What is going on, everybody? You know what time it is. It is time for Shooting the Shit Uncensored. I'm your host, the Dad Bod God, the bald, the beard, and the fucking beautiful Piers Austin. And tonight, my guest is returning, making his second appearance on the show, Carter Deams. I'm really excited to have Carter on. He did appear at the PWA King of the Metro Rumble show. There's so many questions I've got about that show and much more. What he's been doing in Newy Pro, still the Newy Pro heavyweight champion. So there's a lot of talk that we're going to get into that and much more. But before we do, I just want to take a quick second, a pause for that fucking cause to thank some of those amazing sponsors that help us keep these lights on up in this bitch every single night. First up is healthvape.com. Now listen, all you filthy fucking smokers, you cigarette bastards, you vapors, the people that walk around chucking up those big bloody clouds, this is what you need to get onto. Healthvape.com. It is your healthy vaping alternative. All of their products, no nicotine, no addictive or harmful chemicals. They restore your energy. They give you the boost they need, and they're vitamin infused. From what I've been told by Alan Funk, it's like vaping a Red Bull. I've never tried to vape a Red Bull, but I'll take his word for it. But check out healthvape.com. All of their vape and pod products. Use MWA pod to get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Next up, you got to go and check out sleefs.com. That's SLEEFS, sleefs.com. Now, this is a place, if you're an athlete or someone you know is an athlete, you need to get them onto sleefs.com. They've got all your athletic wear covered. They've got armbands, compression pants, compression shorts, headbands, knee bands, mouth guards, boots, and they've even got these dirty boxes that you always hear me talking about. Now, these dirty boxes stay fresh, they stay dry, and they've got funky designs on the front. So at the end of the night, when the belt buckle comes undone, your partner has something funny to laugh at the front of your boxes, not what's inside them. No pun, that was a really bad dick joke, but I digress and we move on. But guys, wherever you are finding us, as long as you are finding us, that is the main thing. So make sure you follow us, subscribe to us. If you're listening to us on a podcast platform, please give us a 5-star review. We appreciate it because the MWA Podcast Network is bringing you shows multiple times per week, like Killing the Business, Nights of the Gimmick Table, NXT Roundup, and Shooting the Shit. So guys, get amongst the fun. Anyway, without further ado, it's time for my one-on-one interview with Mr. Carter Deams. What is going on, Mr. Carter Deams?
Hello, just staying hydrated. Straight vodka. Yep, that's what it is. Keep a straight face.
That's it. How you doing, man?
I'm good. I find it really funny watching your intro video, and the first video you have a head of hair, and then it just progresses into baldness.
Hey, man, this is what happens when you, when I started the show, I had 2 kids. Now I've got 3 kids, bro, and they get older, the stress levels come up.
You don't understand that until, like, my front here is holding on for dear life, and it's definitely the kids' fault.
Dude, you know what's funny? I was in, like, denial for the longest time, right? Like, even, like, a few years ago, I grew my hair out to have it slicked back, and people go, oh, you're going bald at the back. No. I've got thick black hair, right? Because I grew up thick black hair, so I would not accept it. And then one day I just went, yeah, I'm done. I got to accept it.
I'm not there yet, Piers, unfortunately. I'm not in denial about it. I know it's there. I know it's happening, but I'm hanging on. I'm hanging on for dear life.
Well, hey, brother, you're like, what, in your mid-20s? So, like, come on, man. You want to keep that hair for as long as you can, dude.
I just don't think, like, if I had a nice bald head like yourself or Bonza or Parker Thomas, I'd be bald tomorrow. But I don't think I do. I think it'd be grim. So I'm just holding on. Just
It was actually funny because when we did a FWA show, it was me, Parker Thomas, Cam Smith, and Fivey all sitting on commentary, and all of us were just fucking bald headed. And I've seen a photo, you just see the shine coming from the back.
look like a fucking punnet of eggs.
Exactly, man. But man, what's been going on with you? What's been happening?
I say nothing, but I'm as busy as I've ever been. But nothing really. Working, studying, parenting, wrestling.
Jeez, man, you're a busy fucking dude, man.
I am. I am busy. This is the only day I'm available to do. When you said, do you want to do round 2? I was like, I would love to, but I don't know if it's going to ever align. And then the first day you said happened to be the last day in the next fortnight that I'm available. So,
oh man, I'm very appreciative to have you on. It's definitely meant to be, dude. King of the Metro Rumble, the show the other week. You turned up, you shocked the fucking world in wrestling, dude.
Yes.
The world's finest shocks the fucking world. I don't know. How did this whole thing come to be? Because to me, like, we're talking about it before the show, and to me, I said, and I'll say this on air publicly, to me, that was the one of the reasons why I fell in love with wrestling back in the day was those shocking surprise fucking turns that no one sees coming. And when it happens, you're just like, oh, you motherfucker, you got me.
It's been a long time in the making. I can't remember the exact timeline. I don't know if there was a lockdown in between, but I feel like there might have been. The first interaction was when I wrestled Mick. So that's nearly 12 months ago, because that was around the time that Wahlberg first left.
Yeah.
And then we did a promo that night where he told me that I was abandoned. And that's the SMS sort of thing, picking up the abandoned. So that was the first night. And then the story sort of goes that from that period on, I've sort of been an SMS the whole time, and in a Jordan's master plan to make Ricky admit that he needed Jordan's help. And then coming about, it was just something that was presented to me when Wahlberg left, and even sort of the last sort of while that he was there, I was just in the mix at PWA, popping up here for a match every now and then. I wasn't really getting a push. So then when I was presented with something, I just was like, oh, absolutely. I was desperate to get a chance, and I sort of got told a couple of the matches that I'd have along the way. And then when you get told that you're going to wrestle Mick Moretti and Ricky South, and it was just a no-brainer. It's just, yeah. And getting to work with Unsocial Jordan as well, someone, Unsocial Jordan's probably one of the most influential people in my career. Not a lot of people know that, and not a lot of people give him the credit. I'd say he's probably the most underrated wrestler that I could think of. And I think even if you did ask Wahlberg or someone like that, he would even say the same, how special Unsocial Jordan was for us, especially in those early days at Newy, doing like the Babes versus SMS back in the day, because he was you had me, Wahlberg, and Ben Payne, who all had like 1 year in the business, and he had 6 or 7. So he was just the calming head to all these excited young kids who were just like, let's do this, let's do that. And we had some really cool matches, man. So it's really cool to sort of come full circle and then join SMS, who was like my first ever feud in wrestling. So I'm very excited.
And you know what? It's funny how you mentioned like how he's perceived, and obviously, very well respected. And that's something as soon as I've been around him, but from a behind the scenes aspect of shows, seeing that respect given to him, like he's a very calm dude. He's a very like caring dude. I've had the pleasure of talking to him a few times. And yeah, like he to me is one of probably the most respected guys from a behind the scenes aspect. And as a heel on the front, he gets over as a heel perfectly. Like there's fans that enjoy his work, but majority of them are booing the shit out of him, and that's what his job is,
Yeah, I just can't speak highly enough of him. Like I know that Bonza told me once that Unsocial Jordan's opinion was one of the only opinions that he appreciated in wrestling. So I think that's a pretty good
big statement.
Pretty good rub.
Oh, 100%. And the aspect of your character and going into SMS, I think is like gonna give you specifically so much creativity to explore different avenues and stuff like that, and there's always twists and turns, and this is actually one angle I'm like really excited about, legitimately excited about seeing unfold before my eyes. And I don't want to know fucking spoilers and shit, because I'd rather just enjoy the surprise along the way, you know.
Well, luckily I can't spoil anything because I don't know anything that's happening. So, especially now with Ricky's unfortunate injury, so I don't know where it is, but I know that I'm in. Yeah, but it is a cool opportunity because I've always just sort of been, even when I was in the Babes, I've always just been like a pro wrestler. Go out and I only really had to worry about the match, and I'll do promos every now and then. But now I feel like I'm really playing like a part. I really feel like I'm, sports entertaining. Yeah. So I'm playing like a character that's not me. Like I'm really challenging myself creatively to just do something completely out of my comfort zone. And where I'm at with my career at the moment, that's like what's keeping me going, trying to do new things and things that I haven't quite accomplished yet. So I'm buzzing. I can't wait.
You mentioned that, when you were, before you were just, you said a wrestler, weren't really cutting many promos, whatever. But at that time when you were a wrestler, you still had a certain attitude I sort of saw about you. And for me, I want to know, like, what was your, desire when you walked out through that curtain? What was the reaction? What did you want to perceive to the audience who you were then?
I think early days, I was just really, all I thought about going through the curtain was just doing a good job. Probably at times to my own detriment, where I've looked back at a couple of matches from, like, I'm talking within my first like sort of year, 2 years, and I'm just like, it's not deer in the headlights because I know exactly what I'm doing, and I didn't forget one spot. But you look at me next to Wahlberg, and he just is so in the moment, and I'm just really like thinking about what I'm doing. And all I wanted to do was get backstage and have my opponent or my opponents, and then my coaches tell me that I did a good job. I wasn't really worried with the reception that I got. And I think also because I was in a good tag team early on and I was always sort of getting a good reaction, I never went out one time and got a quiet reaction, had to like really go back to the drawing board. It was always just sort of working for me. So I didn't feel the need to change anything, if that makes sense. It was just go out, perform, get feedback, and go again. Because I always wanted to be like the worker's worker. I wanted to have the best matches, do the real like intricate spots. But now, getting a bit older, a bit wiser, I'm trying to do a bit more of the entertainment side of it. Even though it's all the same thing and the same, instead of trying to take the most dangerous bump or do the coolest move, I'm just trying to entertain just that little bit more. Yeah. Take a little bit better care of the body, and just try something new because I haven't really done it before.
And it's and also adding years onto your career by doing that as well, and giving you another aspect of learning and understanding different aspects of psychology as well. Because I once saw an interview with Triple H, and they asked him, what do you look for in a performer that you're going to hire? Like, do they have to be the best wrestler? He goes, no, they don't even have to fucking know how to wrestle. He goes, I can teach them that. That's easy. I'll teach them that shit. But they have to come with something else. Like, whether it's like their presence or they're big on social media, they've got a background in this or something like that, or they're entertaining, they've got this level of confidence about them, whatever it is. But as long as they have this something special, the wrestling, that's okay. We'll teach you how to be a good wrestler. But you've got to come to the table with something good. And I think that's why focusing on promos and characters is such valuable.
Yeah, I agree. And when I started, I'm so self-critical of myself, and I wanted to impress so badly that I was always having training matches, and I'd watch them until like I couldn't stand the sight of them, like every little footstep. And then I was trained by Hoff and Bonza, who, like Bonza especially, such a perfectionist that even now he would come to Newy Pro and do an advanced class, but do like beginner things. And I was so focused on just being good at wrestling. I didn't focus on the entertainment side of it. And now I'm sort of now that I'm sort of a bit more comfortable in my ability in the ring, like I've had, 20-minute main events, tag, singles. I've sort of been there, done it all as far as what you can do in the ring. Now that I'm so confident that I'm like, now what else can I add? Like what? And I saw like Matt Diamond do it himself, where he was always the guys like, you knew he was going to do something silly, you knew he would do a flip, you knew he was going to entertain that way, but he took a spin on his career, got the microphone a little bit more, dialed back the in-ring stuff, and probably having the best sort of run of his career at that point. I was like, that's what I sort of want to replicate. Just a little bit more entertainment and still do, because at the end of the day, I have wrestling matches because I like having them, and I like to have the wrestling matches that I want to have, and I want to watch back and go, oh, I really like that. But at the same time, you need to be pleasing everyone. You need to be pleasing the fans and the promoters and yourself and the people in the ring and the internet. Like, you need to be impressing everyone. So I just had to get a little bit more well balanced in my performance, I think. So that's where I'm at.
But do you think that comes with experience as well? Like, do you think if a young wrestler came in, like, you know, being able to do, okay, like, you know, being able to do, say, like a basic match, and they're going, hey, man, I'm thinking about this character, I'm going to be like this, this, and this. You're a coach. Would you be like, dude, slow down a little bit, right? You need to sort of improve here before you worry about here? Or how was it work from a training perspective?
I couldn't have said it better. Like, every young wrestler thinks they're going to come in and change the world, and that's a great great outlook to have on everything. And my biggest thing as a trainer is that you've got to be able to wrestle first. I think I'm always wrestle first, because although you could arguably have more success just being a character, I feel like you're very pigeonholed into what you can do. If you're really good at making people laugh, but then you just become the guy that makes people laugh. And if that's something that you're okay with, that's fine. But I sort of train every wrestler as if they want a main event Newy or PWA. And to get to that level, you need to be very, very competent in the ring. So yeah, there's a lot of people that I've sort of not in a detriment to them or anything, but I've sort of had the words with and gone, listen, I understand that you're super excited to get out there and you want to do this promo and you want to have these like character arcs and everything, but let's just get the wrestling right first, because everything else will come with time and with confidence and all that sort of stuff. But if you can go out there and have one, we'll put you out there to have a good match with anyone. And I think I'm an example of that, because I was just a very, very sound wrestler in the ring, knew how to have a good match, knew how to be safe, knew how to take care of my opponents, very like a safe worker. And they chucked me with Wahlberg, who's the most charismatic guy I've ever met, and we were incredibly successful. And I didn't have to do that much of the character stuff, but I got put in a position purely based on my ability to work.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, you know, an important factor. And, you know, you mentioned, you know, joining Wahlberg, who is probably one of the most charismatic guys I've ever seen as well, and killing it now. But I think that the team works so well. And it was never like, I thought you were his lackey, or never looked like that. It looked like you guys were equals, because you could come in the ring, perform amazingly. So could he, and everything sort of made sense. Like, both sort of had a similar type of look and style, and I think the team really made sense with a lot of it. And as far as, you know, now, like, you know, these young guys coming in, you know, wanting to break into the business, and I suppose, like, you know, the next question I wanted to ask was, like, you know, fans now as opposed to what fans used to be. Like, you know, like, do you think that wrestling fans can sit there and watch, say, a 35-minute, you know, amazing chain wrestling match? You know what I mean? Like I'm talking about just wrestling fans coming to a show. You know, could they sit down and be hooked into that for 30 minutes, or is the attention span of audiences now deteriorated where they can't appreciate something like that?
I think you got to just like pick and choose like where you are. I know that some wrestlers are sort of stubborn in what they do. If you were to attempt to go out and do like a 30-minute like technical classic at Newy, more of a kid-friendly sort of show, a bit more, I call it gaga, a bit more shenanigan based, then you get crickets. But if you take a match like Jess Troy versus Sam Osborne, which was a 25-minute sort of technical classic in front of that WA audience, which is a little bit more clued into the technical side of it, then it would be incredibly successful. I think every match has its place somewhere, and it could be within the one company. It could be that this company prefers this style a little bit more. But yeah, I think you have to just try and figure out what that company needs. Like, and we try and steer, like as a promoter, you have to try and steer people into something that you think your promotion will benefit from. So for example, I would never suggest an angle that would be paid off in a 35-minute chain wrestling match, because I knew, or I know, that would be unsuccessful. But if I was to build an angle, I might pay it off in a no disqualification match, because that's something that the Newy crowd might appreciate more, like a chair shot over a, an SDF or something. But another crowd, maybe on like AEW or Progress or something, or even PWA, that technical classic might just be what's right for that show at that time. So I don't think it's the attempt, like blaming the fans' attention span is it's not a good, it's just you being stubborn. I think you need to just accept that different crowds have different requirements, and if they're not like biting at what you're giving them, you need to change it. And that's why I sort of go back to the wrestle first mentality. You just need to be able to wrestle. You know what I mean? You need to be able to you just need to go out into the ring, and you've got 10 minutes, and you need to be able to entertain people, whether it's doing a drop kick, whether it's doing a backflip. Just be good at everything and be sound at everything, so that if you get put into a position where something's going to work, you know that you can fit into that role and go, well, I'm comfortable doing a technical classic, so I'm not in the deep end, or I need to go out and do a 5-minute squash or 2-minute squash. Like, you need to be comfortable in all scenarios.
Yeah, and I think like when you were saying, like, the wrestlers don't need to be stubborn; they need to be able to. I think it's more like they should be adapting to the surroundings. Like, have you ever, like, for example, had a match completely planned out? You've gone out there, the crowd is like, "Oh shit, this is a different type of crowd tonight than what we planned. We got to call something on the fly, and we got to change it up."
There's periods of all my matches that are always on the fly. I think a good example, a different sort of example of what you're talking about is, I was originally, booked to wrestle Matt Diamond at the Rumble that was going to be at City Hall. And that City Hall crowd is just loves everything. And I really thought that Diamond and I could go out and have just like a bit more of an indie match, take some silly bumps, do some crazy things. There's going to be, 550 people there. But then COVID happens, go a period of time, and then that Rumble gets rebooked for a show that's not quite on the scale. Diamond's coming back from injury. I'm coming back from injury. We both didn't have the capacity to have that original match that we both had our sights set on. We had to do something else more tailored to that crowd, which was, getting the Velocities involved and getting Dazza involved and doing like a chair spot and blindsiding the ref. And although I really wanted to have that, you don't get to wrestle Matt Diamond in a singles every day. You want to have him like backflip your lariat and take a Canadian destroyer and all that sort of stuff. And if we had done it at City Hall, that's probably how it would have went. But because of the situation, we had to go and do it a different way, and it turned out great. And we just had a laugh after it, because we watched it back and we're like, we didn't really do anything. We both took like a bump each, couple of strikes. We did the Gaga finish, and the pop for the win was so great, because we just mapped it out so well. So, but there's definitely times always where, I think Ricky at the Metro was a good example, where we didn't have any chops planned, but he got one sweet on one of us, and then he's like, man, chops are it. And then he just beat the hell out of us. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's a pretty easy example, but it's a great example. Like, you do a chop, it gets a great sound, and you're like, oh, that's gonna work.
Oh, 100%. And I think it's understanding that. I think probably like, for young wrestlers as well, being in that situation with someone like a veteran like yourself, or a Ricky South, or Unsocial Jordan, Jake Bonza, Hoffman, the list goes on and on, that can actually have a young guy in the ring with them and show them, hey, you don't have to have every step of the match planned out. You can pay attention to what's happening in the audience while you're in the ring. And okay, now we got to change it up this way, and get that experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one that, like, back when I was fresher in the business, it's also sort of like you don't always have the time in your matches, because now I'm main eventing for 12, 15, 20 minutes. You don't want to have to try and remember all that. You don't want to have to try and like plan 20 minutes worth of spots and have to try and remember it. That's incredibly stressful. So you do just go, oh, we'll have a bit here, fill this part in. We might beat each other up on the outside. But when you're new and you're only getting like those 6-minute matches or 8-minute matches, and you're trying to stuff everything you've got in there because, they might see you execute a move and go, oh man, Carter's killing it out there. You think that people are going to be more impressed by the stuff that you do rather than the show that you put on. And that's something that as a coach now, I say it to people all the time at training. It's like, you won't impress me with a move, because I've seen them all and I've seen them done by wrestlers that are better than the ones we're like today. You go watch an AEW show, you will see every move. Just 100%. entertain me with something else.
Yeah. And I think that that's right. Like so many, like I watch some matches and sometimes it's just like, I don't want to call it spot fest, but it's almost like you can see that people are just getting their shit in, and it's like move after move after move. And then it's like next person comes in, move after move after move. And then a couple of things back and forth. And it's like, it's not really a match. It's just a display of moves.
Yeah. And I think that also like has its place. I know that
Absolutely.
when we set out the cards for City Hall, we try and have a match that's going to tick every sort of entertainment box that you could want. So we always have the main event, which is usually the big story match. So we had Diamond and Daz versus Dazza and Diamond in the cage, and that was our big built-up main event, very like WWE pay-per-view. But we also had me versus Rig versus Robbie, which was the Spot Fest match, and then we had Shane versus Bonza, which was the heavyweight match, and then we had the Velocities versus Rita and Hoff, which is the high flying tag. Like, you're trying to hit different sort of notes, and then what we can do is then look at how did the crowd react to the heavyweights, and then we can go, well, they really like the heavyweights. Let's next time we're at City Hall do more with them, or vice versa. And luckily, a lot of the crowds, especially in New South Wales that I've worked, love like a bit of everything. What they don't love is the same. So having different emotional notes, different comedic notes, just different style matchups, because realistically we could book a card that would be me versus Robbie, and then Rig versus Diamond, and then Paris and Jude versus Bonza and Hoff, and then you've got all these heavyweights versus all these juniors, and you've all doing the same sort of moves and sequences and stuff, and it's not gonna highlight one or the other. It's just who does the best job. And when you've got somebody like Robbie or somebody like Mick, they're always going to do a better job than you, because they're better than you. You know what I mean? So you got to try and hit different sort of notes.
Yeah, and I think that it's almost like a wrestling buffet. You know what I mean? Like, you might come for the high flying, but then you see like the heavyweight match and go, damn, these dudes are big motherfuckers. Like, I want to see what they're doing. Or the tag team match, or the match 100%. With you, Rig and Robbie. And I think that if you can offer a little bit of everything, then you've got the fans that come for, like, whether it's a specific performer or have a fan of a specific style, then they like opens up their horizons as well. And you've got, obviously, the performer grows another fan, and so on and so on.
100%. It's so important. Like, I think that balance is what makes like companies successful for long periods of time. And if you look at the big companies around Australia, or I think the companies that have been successful for a long time as well, it's all about that balance. You look at over in EPW, they never do the same thing. Like, and then they'll give Gavin a push, and then he brings his like technical style, and like there's always a bit of everything.
Here we go. We got a question from the crowd. Maybe Carter can answer this or recommend something. He says, I'm over in Perth, or Nathan says, I'm over in Perth and wanted to ask if there's some long-term booking stories I should watch from PWA in the past.
I love the Babes and Jax Jordan storyline. That is a great feud. That's more of a promo based feud. The in ring stuff's great, obviously, but
Yeah.
you've got from when I was away. Then my return match was a pretty big deal for me, and then Wahlberg and Jackson, the blonde hair and all that, to when Wahlberg did. But my favorite, not feud, but like sometimes I like to watch like matches back to back, and I think the Velocities versus the Nations over the tag titles is as good of in-ring storytelling that you'll ever see, like anywhere. Just the way that they put together, like I said to Bonza, who put most of it together, and I don't want this podcast to be me saying how good Bonza is, because I try not to do that at all. It's just been a coincidence.
Just put him over, man.
I'll say something mean about him later, but I almost said to him, it was almost too smart. And he said, yeah, that feud was for him, like his creativity. Because if you go and watch them back to back, you'll see that the stuff they did in the first match, they'll bring it back up in the second match and then change it, like learning from mistakes. And because they happened like nearly a year apart, you'd never pick up on it. But because I'd seen them, I knew. And it's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, dude, I completely agree. But I wanted to go back and we said that the spot sort of matches are important in wrestling, and I agree to a certain extent with it as well. If it makes sense, would you agree on that? Like, it has to make sense. Like, I'm sure there's a crowd that is always going to be into seeing it, but for me personally, like, I love seeing high flying spots. I love seeing it, but it's got to make sense from like to watch it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's always got to make sense. And I think our guys especially just really know, even in mine and Riggs' match with Robbie, to some people you might call it a spot fest, but the little intricate stories that we had in there between me and Rig, and it's like you've got to be just smarter putting it together than just lining up your spots. You've got to have little stories in there and make it all make sense. But yeah, I agree. Everything's going to make sense. It's just like you wouldn't just do a no disqualification match because you thought it would put bums in seats. You've got to build it. You've got to, everything's got to make sense. Every payoff has to be there. You wouldn't just start hitting each other with chairs. And the same thing with, like, by the time Ricky and I had that unsanctioned match at PWA, him and I didn't just like lock up and exchange hold. Like, we were going out there and hitting the shit out of each other with weapons. Like, it's got to follow a trajectory, and then you get somewhere. That's what storytelling is, And I think although like wrestling would be very easy if you're only booking like one show a year.
Yeah.
And you just go, I'm going to get my best wrestlers and I'm going to put them against each other. And if the ticket sales are slumped, then we can just add a stipulation to this one. We can chuck this one in a cage and it's fine. And then that crowd will go to that and go, whew, that was unreal. And then when it rolls around next year, they'll come again. But we're trying to get people to come to shows every 6 to 8 weeks. And if you blow your load in that first show with all these gimmicks, by the time, they don't need to see it again the next month. If you watch the same movie every month for the rest of your life, it's going to get tired eventually. Even the greatest movies ever, you've got to have a little bit of something. You've got to have that long-term story, like problems for characters to overcome, like, and build to certain things. And you want to have a little bit of something on each card, even on the bigger shows. Like, again, bringing up that PWA show, my whole thing with Ricky and with SMS, that was a match on the biggest PWA show for the last 5 years that wasn't a payoff. That was to propel something so that people that are there go, I want to see what happens there. So then we can then build the show around that feud. Too many companies go, I just want to sell tickets to this show. Because I'm not worried about just this show. I'm worried about the next one. And then I'm worried about the next one. And then I'm worried about City Hall. And then I'm worried, how are we going to go from City Hall and then just get everyone to come back?
Yeah. And, that's a question I wanted to ask, obviously from booking. Like, I know you've been, one of the coaches down at Newy Pro. Have you had a chance to try your hand at booking at Newy yet?
We like I'm not going to say I am the sole person responsible. We do have like a little crew there, but yeah, my input there is taken into consideration. Um, Obviously, there's Hoff, and he's in charge, and sort of he gets the final say. He's the Vince, if you will, and then there's a couple of people that might spring him an idea, or they might have an idea for a promo. When it just started out, me just not having creative control, but just sort of giving a little bit of input into what I'd like to do, and then we sort of got on the same page about a few things. He'd ask me a question here and there, but I just think sometimes the best booking comes from like a bit of a collaboration, whether it's maybe I go and ask the wrestlers who are in the feud, like, what would you like to do? You know what I mean? Like, there's certain people, like Mick, for example, where I would just say to Hoff, listen, we just might tell Mick what we're thinking, and just let him come up with it, because what business do I have telling Mick Moretti how to wrestle or how to promo? You know what I mean? Like, let's just leave it to him. He knows what he's doing, and we can just sort of give him where we want to be and in what time frame, and see what he comes up with. But yeah, I have definitely tried my hand. A lot of people call me Hoffman's bitch. He sort of says what he wants, and then I go and try and make it happen. I do all the messaging and asking if people are available and giving them the rundown, and I do all the physical work, and Hoff does all the mental work.
How do you find your hand in booking? Because obviously, this experience that you're getting from a behind the scenes perspective is pretty much like you're getting direct training on how to be a promoter. Is this something that you could see yourself doing, years down the line?
Yeah, I definitely think that coaching and promoting wrestling is going to take over my in-ring career. Like, for the time being, I love being in the ring. I love performing, and I don't think that I'm going to retire in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years even. But I'm very passionate about the people coming through, and I'm very passionate about, I like show days. I like being a part of it. I like watching the ring go up, and I like seeing the people in the audience. And, Hoff's one of my best mates, so I like just the mateship that we get from doing something together. But yeah, I definitely, I don't think I'd ever want to start my own company unless I was to geographically relocate. Like, I would never want to do anything against Hoffman, because he's given me so much. He's given me my start. Like, I wouldn't even be thinking about booking a show if it wasn't for him. So the idea of going against him, that just doesn't sit well with me. But even if Hoff was said that he was going to take more of a back seat and he'd like me to sort of continue, then yeah, absolutely. But I'm just very happy with my spot there. I like that my opinion's appreciated, and I just like that I haven't, not that it would ever happen at Newy anyway, because everybody on the roster is really talented, but I like that I've been able to keep myself in positions to succeed, because occasionally you'll go to a promotion and they'll put you against someone or somewhere, and you're like, how do they expect to get the best out of me here? And I like to think Newy has done me the favor of keeping me in a good position, and then I've been able, and I hope that people think that I've been able to get them in a good position as well. Obviously, booking is hard, especially because people will always have the motivation or the temptation to go elsewhere, as far as like an interstate booking or a trip overseas. And that's not, I'm not trying to have shots at anyone. It's more, I encourage people to go because that's the best thing for their career if they want to make a living. Like, it's vital that people do leave and adventure out. But you sort of just got to be like, well, we have this block of time here that we need you, and if you're not available here, then we're sort of stuck. But yeah, I like to think that I go okay. I'm not perfect, and that's why I think it's good that we go through a committee, and I'll ask other people for advice and see what they come back with. And I like to think that I've been responsible for putting some younger guys like Braxton and Rita Stone and even Dazza, giving them like a good chance to succeed, and I think they're doing really well with it. So not that I'm I didn't make them or anything. They obviously made themselves, and they took what they were given. But you've got to give them something eventually, and if they run with it, then you can just pat yourself on the back and go, well, that was the right decision.
How good is Ben Braxton? Every time I see him perform, I'm just like, dude, this guy he's incredible.
The thing is, he messaged me today and said, make sure you put me over on the podcast.
Well, there you go. I put him over as well. You know what? Tell him I'll have him on the podcast and he can put himself over next time. So
he's so talented. It was good for a while for me because he was at the tryout while I was in New Zealand. And then when I came back, I sort of got not pre-warned, but they told me, like, there's this guy in the Hoos that's, he's pretty good. And from then till now, which is nearly 3 or 4 years, I've known that my head is what's separating us, because certain things I can match him physically, like basing people, catching people, but then he'll go and flip and do what else or lift someone. But his brain is catching up and it's bothering me a lot. Because as soon as his brain is up there with mine, like I'm out of a job.
But dude, you know what? That just shows that what a good coach that you guys are down in the Hoos. You know what I mean? To be able to get someone to get to that level, and also you smarten him up quick along the way.
I'll take that. Absolutely. Yeah, he's just such a good student. Like I've got a couple of really, like, everyone at the Hoos is a really good student. Everyone's sort of respectful when they ask for help. So I've got a great group, like literally from the bottom to the top. Even the newest trainees, I couldn't speak highly enough, and I care about them all. Like, I watch all their matches. I don't always get around to giving them individual feedback because my time is precious, but people do message me all the time, feedback on this match, and I don't care what company it's from, how grainy the footage is. I try and watch and I try and help them as best I can. But yeah, Braxton's like one of those ones where, like, once in a decade sort of guys, because there's nobody like on the current rosters at Newy or PWA that's anything like him, anything at all.
Unique look too.
Just, he's got it all. I'm not. This isn't me trying to flirt with Ben Braxton or anything, but he's a handsome guy. He's in good shape. He's very humble, incredibly athletic, and he's just so dedicated to getting better, which makes it so easy to coach him, because sometimes as a coach, you feel like when you're giving somebody feedback that they don't actually want it. We might watch training matches at training and you'll go, this is what I think. And you can sort of see them in their brain going, okay, great, get me out of here. But he like constantly asks, and I watch everyone. He had a match at IWA and he goes, when I get the footage, please watch it. Please tell me what I can do. Like, he's just so, so wants to be good so badly. So yeah, he's a treat.
And that's the commitment that he wants. Like I've heard from guys over in the States that are veterans, where it's like sometimes in the locker rooms now, people come up, did you watch my match? And they go, yeah, I did. This is what I think you did. Yeah, but I did this. Oh, you just want me to put you over. Okay, yeah, good job. Okay. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, 100%.
And it's like, but that mentality, but as for you as a trainer though, now, like, have you seen people come in with, a bad attitude or just an attitude that doesn't really fit the gym? And like, how do you either humble that or, do you just say, hey, this isn't the place for you?
Wrestling's got like an incredibly high drop-off rate. There was a period where we were getting like 15, 20 people to every try, and we could like pick and choose and go, oh, this guy doesn't sort of fit the bill, or this guy wasn't fit enough. But sometimes in a try, it might get 4 or 5 people and you got to take them all. And I think it's something that happens over time. Like, we have our block at the Hoos where you don't get in the ring for like the first 3 months. And if you can survive that, you get in the ring. And like, there's a few people that come in and they might, sometimes people's over enthusiasm sort of rubs you the wrong way, because they're like, let me get on the top rope. And you're just like, whoa. And I don't hold, like, there's nobody at the Hoos that I dislike or I have in my head that I go, oh, I can't bear it. Because I think once you get to a point that I'm actually coaching you, you've earned that right, and you haven't annoyed me enough. And the people that tend to annoy you or clash with you, they drop off because they don't really have what it takes. They don't have the respect for the business. They don't have the respect for the gym. They don't have the respect for me and Hoff or Shane or Rig. Like, it's coincidental how well an attitude will get you in wrestling, how well like an attitude translates to a good wrestler. And
Yeah.
yeah, I can't think of one person at the Hoos that I think is a great wrestler that has a terrible attitude. Like, they're all a treat to have.
Yeah, and it's good that that sort of falls off because one bad apple can spoil the bunch, and I think a lot of people that come in and this is something that Mark Mercedes said when he was training people. He's like, I said, how was it training people? He goes, man, something people just wanted to come stand in a wrestling ring, hit a rock bottom, and they're done. Like that's their dream of in the thing. He goes, and you just got to sometimes you got to pander to them, and he goes, and the ones that really want it, they stand out from the get go.
Yeah, 100%. And that's why we do that 3 months at the start, because you got to earn that way into the ring. But yeah, there's people that occasionally they might give me a little bit of grief and they might argue, but it reminds me a lot of like how I was constantly challenging people, constantly having arguments with people about why I thought this way was better. But I think that's sort of the reason where I am today, because I think you need to fight for yourself and fight for what you believe in, because if you put something in a match, there was a period of time where you thought that was the best idea. And obviously early days in wrestling, you don't have the best brain, so your best ideas aren't going to be great. But you should fight for what you believe in, but you should also have that respect of who's training you to take that feedback and go, okay, well, I understand why I was wrong or why it doesn't work better. And it's all just about seeking feedback, like I remember my first match with Bonza it was my second match ever on a show, first time on the main roster. The first thing he told me before we even had thought about planning the match was, make sure you talk to Madison Eagles after the match. And to a young wrestler being told that you have to talk to Madison Eagles, I was terrified. But I did, and I think the reason that her and I have a very good working relationship is because I had that respect of, could you please give me some advice? Was there anything that you saw? And she gave me some advice that I didn't even deserve. You know what I mean? Like, she didn't have to go to all that trouble. And I heard some stories that she has a notebook at all shows that she goes to, and she takes notes on all the matches. But if you don't ask her for the feedback, you don't get it. That feedback will just stay in that book and you'll never get it. So the amount of wasted things in that notebook that she could write down, because I've been there and received the feedback, people are missing out. And I've, like, some matches, she said to me, I'd only change this one thing, other than that, really good. Or sometimes she'll just say, I was too busy, didn't watch it. But the one time that she might sit down with you and give you like 15 minutes of her time is priceless. It's better than any training session you could go to, because this is one thing that's been bugging me recently. All these people are talking about how hard they work in wrestling, but all you see them do is post videos online of them doing like the basic wrestling roles or getting in and out of the ring. And I'm like, that's not wrestling at all. Because like, I tell people all the time I train, like, we're going to do forward rolls today and they need to be perfect. And I can't tell you why they need to be perfect, because I have never done one forward roll in a wrestling ring, but it needs to be perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm just so flabbergasted, because people are like, I'm working so hard, but then they're working so dumb. We're just getting feedback on a match that you've put like your brain into is better than any wrestling session you could have. Because I go to a session, I plan them, and you're like, well, we'll do our rolls, and then we'll do some lucha drags, and then we'll do some bumps, and we'll do a spot, and that's fine. But as a rookie, you didn't think of that spot, so you have no idea why it's right, why it's wrong, if it's right at all. Because sometimes I put spots together that make no sense, but they're just to get different fundamental bits of, so you can practice them. And I tell people all the time, don't do this spot in a match because it makes no sense. I just wanted you to be able to do like an up and over and a back bump in the same spot. And that's why I've penciled it like this. But when you put your creativity towards a match and somebody's going to directly feedback that's the money right there. That's the priceless.
Yeah, that's the stuff that you can't get. And it's, you mentioned like people, taking videos and posting them on social media of like their training and stuff like that. Do you think, like, honestly, what's your opinion on that? Do you think people should be filming themselves while doing wrestling training? Like, or do you think, hey, it's not really the type of thing you should be filming and putting out there on social media?
I just guess it depends on like what your motivation is, to be honest. Like, I've never seen anybody do a roll and gone, "Poh, that guy's the next big thing." I understand that people like to hold themselves accountable, or they might just want to put over the wrestling gym, or it might be sort of a part of their gimmick that they train really hard. I don't buy hard work anymore these days. It sounds stupid. I'm definitely a work smarter type of guy, because there's plenty of people out there that are posting all these like 5 times a week, 4 times a week, they're in a wrestling ring. And I'm like, that's great. But what's really wrong with you as a performer is your presentation. So how about you drop 4 of those wrestling sessions a week and you go to the gym and you eat a little better and then look like a wrestler, and then all those problems you have with your booking that I work so hard, why am I not getting booked, will be solved, because you're not identifying the issue. That was something that I did. I had a big reflection process coming back from COVID where I was like, why aren't I the top guy at Newy? Why aren't I the top guy at PWA? And I was like, it's my character work. So I went and I worked on it. And I asked people questions like Mick, who's like a character. That's what he does. I said, what do you do in matches to plan? And I studied and I worked hard towards that. And I didn't step foot, because it was COVID. I didn't step 1 foot in a wrestling ring for that period of time, but I worked as hard as I ever have to work on that. It's just this, people have this idea that if I'm in a wrestling ring, I am working hard, where I'm at a position in my life where I can barely get to training once a week these days. I hold myself to the standard that I'll go once a week. And sometimes I'm lucky enough to go 2. Sometimes I might be lucky enough to go 3. Sometimes I don't go at all. But I'm working as hard as I ever have.
Yeah.
I'm still going to the gym. I'm still eating as well as I can. I'm still studying wrestling. I'm still booking wrestling and watching matches and ticking my brain over. And there's people that think they work 3-4 times as hard as me, because Carter's only training once a week. I train 4.
Yeah.
It's like,
they just don't get it.
There's a reason why I am doing what I'm doing. And I'm like, there's a reason why you're asking me to be booked on a show and not vice versa.
Yeah.
But you're working hard, but you're asking me to get booked. And that's people just need to be a bit more real with what they are and their expectations of themselves, and figure out what they actually need to work on. Because if you're 4 or 5 years into a career and you're just doing your wrestling roles and that's what you want to post online about yourself, you have a distorted perception of what wrestling is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. And I think, with a lot of cases, it comes down to, people who just don't understand, the aspects of the whole performing aspect of it. It's like, you could be in a wrestling ring 6 days a week, but if you've got no personality, you, as you said, look like shit, eating like shit, you don't look like a professional wrestler. Yeah, I mean, there's things missing and you're not acknowledging them. Prime example, the character work, and then going and developing that and speaking to people that are damn fucking good at character work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the one session I might do a week, the intensity that I have when I'm there and what I'm able to fit in while I'm there, like I always have a training match. Even there has not been one time ever in the 5 or 6 years I've been training to be a wrestler that we've done training matches and then I've said no. I wrestled Rita Stone at training last Wednesday, and I sat down in front of Hoffman, and Lena Cross was there, and I said, like, what feedback, guys? Like, tell me. And this is the heavyweight champion of that company asking people that aren't at a level of, not Hoffman, but like other people that I'm training, what did you think of my match? Because any opinion is a good opinion.
Yeah.
It's up to me whether I choose to take it on board and directly influence how I think. But if it gets me thinking, then that's good enough for me. But like, if you're in a ring 6 times a week just doing rolls, just get in there twice a week. But when you're there, make it count. I don't know the exact saying, but something like there's a difference between a habit and hard work.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are in good habits, they turn up a lot, they go everywhere a lot, but they're not actually doing anything while they're there. Not worthwhile anyway, where you could just figure out your schedule more and put in more effort while you're there. And I'm not talking about anybody in particular. I'm talking about
No.
a general consensus, a general population. And luckily, most of the people that I associate with at Newy and PWA, I trust those training schools so much that it's not a problem where I am. But I see people at companies where there's a bit more of a mix in the rosters, and I'm like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And I know people that don't train at all, haven't trained for 6 months. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
they
It
could really
shows.
use a session every now and then.
But you know what? I think it shows as well. And, for me, I've never been in the ring, so I can never say anyone's a bad performer or anything like that because I haven't done it. I'm not educated to say that. But I think there's some performers I've seen at some shows, and I'm not just talking Australia, I'm talking internationally as well on indie shows that you see and go, man, like, you know what I mean? Like, what was, you know what I mean? Like, I sit there and go,
Yeah.
you know what I
And
mean?
it
Like,
happens
something seemed a bit off, you know?
so all the time, and that's, I said it. The first thing we ever spoke about today was wrestling over anything. Wrestle first, because those holes in your game, they don't go away unless you and I've had to retrain people that have come from other places and just been like, and it's harder to retrain someone than it is train somebody, because once that's ingrained in your head, that's what you think that's what you know. So
Yeah.
it's just, that's the wrestle first. That's the big takeaway. Learn to wrestle first, because then everything else just comes naturally. Because even if you're a bit boring in the ring, we can stick you in there with somebody that's not, and you can just do everything great. Because I'll finally get to shit on Ben Braxton. When he first started, he was boring, and he won't mind me saying that, and I was too. But he was just a guy who could do some cool things, and he really struggled with that. But now he's at a place in his career where he's not, but he was always sound, and you could never look back and go, man, Ben Braxton had a bad match, because they didn't exist, because he knew how to wrestle as soon as he debuted.
Yeah. And that's obviously someone who went in with the right attitude, shut the fuck up, opened his ears, went, you know what? The only way to get better at this is to invest in this. And that's what it sounds like he's done.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But, you mentioned, Rita Stone, Dazza, the last lot of people that came through the tryout, like, how confident are you that we'll be seeing these guys on shows in the next couple of years?
Even after Rita and all that?
Yeah.
The newer crop?
The newer crop.
There's a couple of people that are right there, like Leo Tempest and Albie and Shay Cassidy. They're all haven't quite done as much on the roster as some people, but that's just because their roster's full. And I watched them on a couple of shows the last week where we talk about that quality isn't as good, and they look like stars. Because
I agree. That was the first time I saw Leo wrestle, to be honest. And man, I thought he looked great. I think he has a cool look. And in ring was just, man, I thought it was brilliant. I really enjoyed his work, to be honest.
Nice kid, hard worker. And that's sort of like that's the level of guys we've got, just that can't quite break on yet. You know what I mean? Because the roster's so full, because people like Mick and Bonza, they all still exist. They haven't gone anywhere. Wahlberg and Steph are the only ones that really left. And we're still trying to fit everybody on, plus new people. It's very hard. But then there's a couple of exciting people at the Hoos, to be honest. We had a couple of new guys just start, and there's a gentleman that came to the Hoos at the most recent try, and he walked in the door, and the way he presented himself, and he told us his story, and I was just like, this guy's got the bits, man. He's got the dedication, because he moved from Tamworth to come and train. The last guy that I know of that fully relocated to wrestle was Scott Greene, who's also a very exciting young wrestler. So if you dedicated enough to business to relocate your whole life, and he presented well, he shook hands, he was polite, and he's been at every session so far, that's just the type of standard that we hold everybody to. And the very exciting thing about wrestling too is that it doesn't matter if you've been training for 4 years or 6 months. You might just have a breakthrough one day that completely changes, because Bob the Viking has been training longer than I have. He's been doing this a while, and it just hadn't clicked for him for a long time. And then he starts doing the Viking thing, and then all of a sudden, somebody that I was like, maybe there's just no hope for Bob. You know what I mean? Maybe he's not going to figure it out. He figured it out, and now he's one of the new prospects that we've got, and he's an exciting guy. He's got a great character. He's a great guy, a dedicated human. He's fit. Like, he just has all the right things. But like two or 3 years ago, I'd just about written him off. It's like, well, you know, he's sound in the ring, but he's just not figuring it. And then he did. And that's the beauty of wrestling, is that you might come in and it might not click for 3, 4, 5 years, but one day it will. And the sky's the limit.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. It's like, you know, it's, you know, Angel, you know, who's a friend of mine, he was trained by Johnny Rods, and he asked me, he told me, he asked Johnny when he was training, he's like, how do I get over? And Johnny's like, go figure it out. You know what I mean? Like you just got to figure certain things out. And I think you've got to figure out your own character on how you're going to be able to deliver it. And, you know, I think gimmick names and stuff like that are obviously better to be given to you. But I think, like, as a character, you really need to figure out who you are to be able to really figure out who your character is.
Yeah. And people have little, I don't know what to call them. Just call them growth spurts, really, like, where it's almost like if you watch their where they are the whole way through and watch every one of their matches, you might not see the change, but then you compare where they are to like where they were. It was something that I was thinking about Jess Troy at the Metro, where like when she won that strap, I was like, man, she's fucking unreal. And then, you know, every sort of show, you always think she does a good job, but then I watched her at the Metro, and then I went back and watched, and I was just like, she is 200% better. And I didn't even notice a change. But like, it's just, you just have periods in your career where you click. So something clicked for her when she won the strap, and then a year and a half later, something clicked again, and she's just gone to another level. And it happens all the time with people. It happened with me. It happened with Rig. You know, people just click, and you don't know what's happening until you just, one day you sit back and go, man, like, they're so good. And like, they've just been here, just, you know, plugging away, just doing the same old thing that we're all doing the same shows, taking the same bookings, but something just clicked again, and they went off on a whole nother tangent. And then you're just like, whoa, what happened?
Yeah. And I think it's good, like, the fact that, you know, when you've got, you know, great performers wrestling each other, you know, as the saying is, iron sharpens iron, you know, performers here going over to the US, to go to the UK, Japan, and then bringing that knowledge back here and then sharing it, you know, with, you know, the other performers. You know what I mean? Like, Australian wrestling, you know, I always put it over as, you know, some of the best wrestling in the world. And that might be because I'm biased. But, you know, I honestly believe that. And, you know, for me, I even think, you know, Newy Pro, for what you guys do in a community in Newcastle, and to be able to have the level of talent that you guys have, and, you know, not just put on good shows, but put on great shows.
Yeah, like Newy always flies a little bit under the radar because we've never put much into the online presence, but we have the exact same roster as PWA, don't we? Just a little bit tailored towards a different sort of community. But you know, we fill up our venues, we sell out City Hall. Like, we're doing some cool things here. Like, and the thing is that we're not motivated necessarily by like online perceptions. We're just focused on those people that are in the building that night. So that's sort of why we fly under the radar a little bit. But to everybody that comes to the shows, they speak so highly of us, and that's, you know, that's what we focus on.
Do you think Newy Pro will go down like the road of like the streaming services on Fight, or do you guys prefer to have, like, because I know I've seen like a couple of shows which are recorded that were put up on Facebook and certain pages like that, but, you know, do you think Fight TV is a road to go down for Newy?
I think so. We've just been like sort of figuring out the logistics of everything. The thing that's a negative to us is that a lot of the really talented people that do all that sort of stuff live in Sydney. So geographically, it can be a little bit of an issue. Just even like, you know, how Jax does such a good job with all that B-roll that he does. You know, he can do that just after training every night at PWA if it applies. And The last time he did it for us, it was like a whole day. Like we had to make a full day out of it. And luckily now we've got our guy, the video web, and he's doing an exceptional job. I really think he's taken us to that next level. Some of the stuff that he's helped us put out is just fantastic. And now that he's building up like his sort of portfolio of footage and different highlights and clips and getting better and more experience, like I don't see why not. We have done a few practice live streams that are on YouTube. Feel free to check them out. Like we put the show up there for a live stream. We don't really advertise it that much because we don't want the people that would pay for a ticket to just go, oh, I can just stay at home. But it's definitely something we're working towards. It's just a bit more of a slower process for us because we don't have like for as good as I am at setting up a ring, I've got no idea what to do with the camera. And unfortunately, we just don't have, but we're getting there. And definitely something like Fight TV or one number of those stream could be in the future. We just got to knuckle it down. And the thing with COVID as well, like when you're coming out of COVID, all you really want to do is just get in front of a live audience.
Yeah.
So I think we're well on our way, but yeah, hopefully soon.
But as well, like with that as well, you guys can build up like a massive following, like a PWG following, which like they're batch. You know what I mean? Like it's live audiences. There's only a select, like I think 200 people that can come in. You know what I mean? Like a complete underground sort of thing. And then I think, definitely once you guys do drop on Fight TV, I think there'll be a huge demand for it.
I hope so. We're just like, we don't want to go on Fight TV before we know that we're ready, because we don't want to like, you've only got one chance to make your first impression. So we don't want to get on there, shit the bed, and then everyone's like, well, what's this joke of a company doing? Like we want to make sure we're properly ready. We want to make sure the shows of the highest quality in ring, the way it presents, all the cameras are fine tuned, and like there's a little bit more that goes into it than we sort of would have expected. But we're glad that because of PWA's sort of trial and error, that we don't have to do the trial and error. We can just sort of figure it out. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. But look, we are at that 1 hour mark. It's an awesome conversation when you're looking at an hour and 7 minutes, and it feels like you've just been talking for 5 minutes. To be honest, dude, I've had an absolutely amazing time. Again, you're always welcome to come back. I'd love to do a part 3 with you sometime down the line. I'm sure we can definitely tee it up. But man, where can people follow you on social media at the moment?
Instagram is my favorite social media. Deams Pro. That's where you find me. I also do the Newy Pro Instagram. So yeah, just chuck us a follow. I don't really do anything else. I don't have a Twitter. I have a Facebook, but nobody uses the Facebook. So Instagram for any sort of connection that you might like, whatever.
What about some Carter Deams merch?
At a show.
Show.
That's the one thing that's been neglected my whole wrestling career is my merch. But I'm on the way up. I've just sent out a little inquiry to a designer, and I've actually got a design that I've had in the works for so long. Like it's been designed for a year, but I've just never taken the steps to get. That's how laissez I am with merch. But yeah, I hope I'll get the wrestler merch sorted soon when I get 5 minutes to sit down and actually take care of some of that stuff. But yes, merch will be soon. But at a show, I'm nearly sold out too. So
there you go. Make sure you go and buy some of those Carter Deams T-shirts at the shows. Make sure you can sell them out for him, and make sure you keep an eye on wrestler merch. Robbo, thank you for tuning in. It's great having you here. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. Please do me a favor. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, leave us a comment. If you're listening to us on a podcast platform, please give us a 5-star review. We greatly appreciate it. Check out our sponsors, healthvape.com and sleeves.com. Use those promo codes MWA Pod to get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Again, Carter, thank you for the amazing conversation. It's absolute pleasure to talk to you as always. But guys, until next time, we'll see you again very, very soon. Till then, take care. All the best. Peace.